Just a second. And we are live. Not yet. Or maybe we are live. Grooming Preston hat.
It's scheduled for 1:15,
Oh, there it
so
is.
it may
Okay,
just.
cool. We are live. Yeah, we're just a little bit behind. All right, everyone.
Okay. Yep, there we
Welcome
go.
to the Plague Poppets live development broadcast. Today we have Jed, and especially today we have Alex. Alex has helped us create the 3D pipeline that we use to generate the NFTs. It was the initial mind that put it all together, and so really grateful to have him here. And today we're gonna cover the grooming of Preston's hat. And here, Jed, you can talk a little bit about Preston and what we have here on the screen.
Yeah, so this is an original puppet by Julie Adams, our creator for the Plague Puppets. And Preston's really been somebody special in her life that is a mainstay at the orphanarium. Preston is the host of the podcast Puppet Radio that you can find on Spotify and I believe a few other places. But yeah, Preston's just a unique character that we wanted to model, bring into the pilot. So the challenge here for Alex and the team was to figure out the grooming and how far we could sort of push all of those details within the original fabric that Julie found for his hat. So yeah, got a few images from Julie, and we're able to scan some of the textures, looking at the green velvet, which we've used in the past in our 3D NFTs, as well as the onesies, but the hat is very unique to Preston. So yeah,
Yes.
fun challenge.
Yes, and hopefully, well, the goal is to have him to use this hat as one of the assets in the pilot, and also is going to be offered as an NFT to be interchangeable with the other traits. And but today we're gonna do a deep dive into the technicalities of on how we are able to create this level of fur into 3D, using especially in Unreal. So I'm super excited to share, this this pretty advanced technique here. So yeah, Alex, if you want to take it from here.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, so been creating what's essentially called a groom asset inside of Unreal Engine, and was a decent little learning experience for me and a lot of fun to get figured out. But all in all, wound up not being too complicated for me.
Mm.
There's a process going through that there's some more advanced stuff with grooms that did make it complicated, but the initial output was we got a groom there. We got some hairs. They're on the clothes, on the hats, those types of things, and they really helped just kind of break up, that silhouette that would normally be just this smooth curve. We now have all of these things sticking out, which kind of give it that just more fun feel to things, especially with how crazy the fibers can be on hats like Preston's here. Like they're just going everywhere, and they really kind of add that extra layer of like personality to things.
Yeah.
So
Shaggy carpet
for the
feel.
process.
Yeah.
For the process of everything, like, it always starts with reference images. And so that's what we have here. And taking a look at things and trying to study, like, what is the behavior of all of the fibers going on here? I mean, there's a lot of noise and there's like crinkles and everything, but, we can see that like this hat was placed on and there were hands kind of stroking downward in areas. There's also just natural ways that the hairs kind of move and flow based off the shape of the hat itself. Right, so we're looking at kind of things like this. So we want to make sure that we're recreating those, and it's kind of nice to have that little touch of like, Ma Peebs
Yeah.
put on a little hat on this guy. So
Yeah.
there's marks of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
so
and those are sensibilities we lead into with stop motion, right? With actually getting the artists and the animators to get their hands on the puppets. So nice to sort of carry that over into the 3D space.
Yeah, 100%. So the next step really is just to get the base shape of the hat. And again, we're not accounting for the hairs with that. So that's where this kind of like smooth silhouette comes from. Just the nature of things, right? And so we've got this kind of shape here. And so this gets made into a 3D piece of software and it'll all be there. We make a high poly and then we'll eventually make a low poly for it to run inside of Unreal, just to make things a little bit easier. But so if I go over to Maya, we have that hat right here. This is one example of a hat. It's right. It's not going to be the final product necessarily, but we have a base hat.
Yeah, and these
go ahead.
were sculpted by Nikki Rice, our sculptor that works in ZBrush. And she's able to work back and forth with Alex and the artist to work on that original sculpt and to see how that transforms with the groom and where we can make adjustments.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for giving credit there. Yeah, so Nikki's been wonderful in helping us get these sculpts done. She's done a great job. And she delivered this hat to me and this was kind of done as a proof of concept. We can talk about edge flow all day, but it'll be kind of reworked for the engine. But for all intents and purposes, we have a hat here, and all we really need to do at this point is attach our groom. And so since I'm using Maya, I use XGen for the grooming aspect of things. So if I go to my XGen here and go to my XGen editor, I can actually just create a new description and fill out this information however I want. I'm not even going to worry about it right now, really. But the main part is that we want groomable splines to be able to be used. So we're going to be essentially creating guides for things and then using those guides to generate our actual splines themselves. So if I hit create there, I was afraid this was going to happen. Sorry, one sec. So this is one of the issues I ran into. You cannot have a little colon in your name of the asset, which was right here, if you're going to be doing this. So let me create a new one.
File names are always tricky.
Yep. There we go. Now we can see all these little guides here, right? And so there's a couple of ways to work with this. I've got a pretty powerful computer, so I can literally just turn on my update preview automatically. And then we just start working away with some things to start getting these hairs developed. You can see that they act as curves, right? They're simplistic curves, and we can set how many vertices per curve, basically setting the detail as to how we want these things to be. And so I'm going to bring up my reference here for myself, just so we can save time. Give me one sec. It's up on my other monitor. There we go. Just so that I can kind of match things a bit better. There's all sorts of things in here, and a lot of this is kind of like script-based. And so once we get it nailed down, what's nice is that I can just copy-paste these fields over to new areas. So we can set things like our density, right? We can get more dense fibers, which we'll do, but for preview purposes, we'll keep it low. And so for right now, the main thing we're going to be working on is making sure that this is long enough. And we can simply type in a random modifier here. And we can do a random between A to B. So I'm going to do random between size of 1 and size of 10. And then set that in. And all of a sudden, we've got longer hairs.
What did you do there to fill up the tips? Was it just waiting to fill in, or? Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, there's so it only updates on what's in your viewport. So if I were to go like here, right, it's only going to update what's in my viewport there. So I just click this little refresh button on the eye, and it's there for that.
Cool.
And so from here, it's not too bad. We can leave the density. We'll probably put it up a little bit. So I think on the other one, I have it at 4.84. So we got a decent density there. And then there's a couple of ways to go about this. I generally like to do my modifiers, but along with modifiers, we have groom as well. So we'll get into that in a second.
Mm-hmm.
And so the modifiers that I use are, we'll start with kind of the, let's go back to our reference here. And I can Control Z out of this. One of the things that you'll notice with a lot of these is that there's some clumping that occurs. Right. And so I like to start off with a clumping modifier just to make sure that I'm getting this kind of, there might be some oils or something present in some of these areas that are kind of getting these fibers to stick together.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So they have a clumping modifier here, but it gives me an error because there's no guides set. And so what needs to happen is we need to set up our maps for that. And through some trial and error, I've basically figured out that we set our density to 0.3. We can generate our guides. And one of the things that we can do to take a look at this is actually, we can see how many guides we have. These would be the larger yellow ones. You can see if I move it to 1, we get more of those. But I don't want too small of clumps. I want kind of larger clumps to be here. So those are there for me to see visually, and then I can hit save. And it's going to generate, and all of a sudden we get clumps.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Fascinating. I see
Right.
the guides
So-
are used because we created guides originally for the hair themselves, and now we're creating guides for the clumps, right?
Yep, exactly.
I see.
And obviously this is a little too clumpy, right? So we're going to want to move things down a little bit, right? We can use the same modifiers here too. We can do our random of like 0.1 to, let's say like 0.5. Right, and so we do have some clumps, especially if you look straight on. You can kind of see how that behavior is there, but it's it's very slight in the clumping, so it's not overly done in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but gives a good, like, just organic, natural parameters to it that when you
Yeah.
randomize it really plays.
And it's wonderful that the math just does it for us, right?
Yeah.
So then we can start with some more guides. We can go into noise, and just for sake of time, I'm just going to be copy pasting some parameters in here, and I can go over briefly like what's happening with this, but we're just giving noise to the overall hairs, which again, right, this is just making it look more natural.
Mm-hmm.
Right, we're giving a little bits of offsets, especially if we look close into here. We go. Right, we're starting to get some of that crinkling going on.
Oh wow, I see.
And then I'm going to put in a cut as well, which is just going to further our differentiation between really long fibers and shorter fibers.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to make this that. And then the last one I put in is coil, which is right here. And so we'll put in some values for this one. And again, I'm just randomizing things.
Yeah.
Coil has the biggest effect.
Yeah, for sure. So coil,
And
what
you can
is
see-
the mean? Oh, I see. It just kind of creates a curve.
Yep, it literally coils it.
Coils
It's
it,
kind of
yes.
it might be hard to see, but there's a picture for it here too. But
I see.
Yeah,
right,
that's
and we're
great.
randomizing the intensity.
Uh-huh.
That way it doesn't feel so much like a wire brush or something
Yeah.
like that. It's got
Nice.
Yep.
a little bit more random direction and softens it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Right. And so now we've got like our foundation, our base done for things. I like to go back to the primitives and actually change the modifier CV count. Again, this is like a vertex. So if I really zoom in here, we can take a look at like this fiber right here. We can see it's straight line to another straight line to another straight line, right?
Yeah.
So we have 5 of these points per hair.
Uh-huh.
I can up this to smooth it out.
Ooh. Yeah.
Right, so I put it to 12, and now it's nice and smooth.
I see. Which I'm assuming also increase the complexity of the shape and does the calculation
It
and
does,
the rendering
yes.
requirement.
Yep. Yep, so there's always that balance between performance and your output. Even with offline renders, like, it's going to take more time to calculate that with an offline renderer, but we are using Unreal, which is real time, so we just want to make sure that we're accounting for performance with things, but we're treating it as an offline render. So
Yeah.
it's it's still a balance. So with that, that's when I go into my groom here, and then I start using like the orient brush here, and every time I get in here, I always forget the shortcut. Which one? There it is. To change my brush size.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna turn my magnitude down, and I can start treating this almost like literally a brush. Like I can start. Right, it'll take a second to calculate. But you can see how I have that swipe down now.
Oh, that's so cool.
Amazing.
All right, so you can start really kind of shaping those individual areas. And obviously, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but
Yeah.
right, this is like where the hand, pushed down.
Yeah.
And then the other part is the inside is really important too, because we've got all these fibers that can interfere with the face.
Yeah.
So just grabbing these and making sure we're stroking those inwards. I'd probably do a higher magnitude for these,
Let's see.
just to get them out of the way like that, right?
Huh.
Yeah, and when you watch Julie in person really fit these hats to their puppets and make it a unique feel and give them the right look, with the eyes and the shape of everything, it's a really nice detail that we can bring into the 3D world that represents that.
Yeah, exactly. And the goal here really is like we still want that natural feeling, right? We still want these silhouette breakups to happen, but just not being so much there that it's covering the face and keeping you from seeing those details.
Yeah, and you just go in there and clean things up.
Yep.
It's really nice technique.
Yeah.
Right, and then from here is when it gets like technical because there's some code that's involved with stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so what happens is like we have this what's called a collection. We have a description inside this collection. So you can do multiple descriptions. So you can do multiple it's really useful for like animals who have hair longer in some areas compared to others. You can do multiple descriptions for like, legs compared to like chest hair and, things like that. So you can do that, but we're just using one description here. And basically what we do is we want to convert this into a interactive groom. Right. And I usually do a prefix of groom, right? We convert it. And now we can actually hide this, and our groom is right here. And if I hide this, you can see. So this is our interactive groom. This is technically setting it up to be exported as an Olympic cache, which is what is used for the groom plugin inside of Unreal in order to import these.
Why is it called interactive? Is it what's the difference between a normal groom and interactive? Is it some kind of internal Maya description?
I don't have a full answer for that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just I'm assuming. Yeah.
That's what they call it.
Yeah.
My hunch is that it is embedding things into it so that it can be interacted with as far as like physics and things go. I believe that's the idea. Whereas this is like creating it. Once you've done creating it, you move it to an interactive groom where it embeds that information that can't be edited anymore.
Yeah.
The only thing that can really edit it would be like real-time modifiers for things like springs, for how stiff it bounces back and forth and stuff like that.
Makes sense.
But again, I don't really fully know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now we have this set up. We choose this groom and we generate and we do cache and we create a new cache for it. I'm not going to do that right now, just because it's not necessary. I already have this saved. But with that cache created, what we end up doing is if I go to import, and this is probably going to take a minute. Let me go to my Puppets files. Sec. So what happens when you export it as the Olympic cache is it is now converting these just into straight curves. And you can see that it's taken a while because they probably have like 40,000 something curves for this hat. And it's still probably going to take a minute to fully load. So there's the curves.
Nice.
Right. Now these are all each individual curves, which are separated into groups. And I believe it's in groups because Maya can only handle so much information, or the file format can, before it has to put it in like a new file, essentially.
I see.
So this is where the actual tech stuff comes in. And this is where we bring up the script editor for Maya. Unreal Epic provides us with a Python script to actually use. which I thought I had the website for, but it's on their website. So there's a script here, and it requires a little bit of editing. So I just copy pasted it in because it was originally made for Python 3, I think, but now with like 2023 plus uses Python 4. So you need to put parentheses around the print fields here.
Yeah.
And then the important part is all of this down at the bottom. These are basically you're setting variables and determining a number of things where you want it to export to. So if I export mine, I want to do I went to my 3D folder. And then the hair file is the ABC file that's going to be exported. So in this case, I would want to keep it. This is Preston's hat, so I would do like ABC, so I know what file type this is, because I'm a stickler for naming conventions.
Yeah.
We do like puppet hat.
I mean, that saved us during the development of the NFTs.
Yeah.
Even though sometimes it was difficult to get everyone to stick to it, even just having the structure, it was so helpful.
Yeah. So, in this case, like this is Preston's hat, and this is the first version, or the first, I always put numbers in it just because we have different iterations. It's the first iteration of it, but we are going through different versions to choose which one we like best. So I'm just making sure it matches the version of the hat. And this group of, we have the two groups here, right? I want to make sure I'm doing group 0 to start with. And then our curved top group, this one took a little bit to figure out because there's this little thing right here, which is you hold shift and press backslash.
Yeah.
That's that button. And so what this does is this actually differentiates the top of the group, which is this name here. You can see the group name.
Yeah.
And then what the spline group we want to use is our group 0 here.
Yeah.
I'll extend these out so you can see group 0.
Yeah.
I'm not going to click this because it takes like 4 minutes for my computer to update it.
Okay.
But you want to make sure these names match 1-to-1.
Right.
I see.
Right. They both go there. And then the UV mesh is your hat mesh. And then you just run the script and it exports. And so just to make sure, right, we got to make sure we have our UVs laid out. The reason why we're doing this is because we want each one of these fibers to be aligned where their root is attaching to the hat based off the UV space. And so if we do that, so if we do like, if I were to, I can't do it there. 1 second. Try to grab a face, right? So we can see how these correspond here.
Like where they're planted from.
Yeah. Yep.
I see.
So wherever their roots touch, they're going to be at that UV space. So like this one specifically.
Yeah.
So that way we can assign the same texture we're using for the hat's color to color the roots or the color the curves for the Olympic groom.
I see. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so that's where the scripting comes in. And once you're done with that, we just bring it over to Unreal. And this is essentially the output. We have to import the grooms themselves, which is a whole process. It's not complicated, really. But so you can see we have our... We'll boot this up real quick. Right, we have one group there. And then we have our other group here. And with these two combined, we have a full hat.
It's amazing.
And the cool thing is, sorry, go ahead.
So those are the groom. This is the mesh is not. You put it on the mesh already here, right? Or,
yes, the mesh is present.
Oh yeah, I see. Static mesh component. There it is. Yes. Okay. Cool.
All right, so I have a little example of just like painting a quick little, again, this isn't final, this is just for proof of concept, but painting a quick little thing here and then using that as our hat material.
Yeah.
And if we get there, oops. We can see we have our surface texture here.
Yeah.
Right, so we apply that to the hat, but we also use that same texture for the groom material itself. Let me bring these back, make these visible. And then I can choose just this one, and we'll go into the material for that. And we see we have this field for color map, and this is going to be the same exact map as the
Same map
hat
as the
itself.
hat. I see. And the tangent map was generated by the export there?
The tangent map was generated inside of Unreal itself. To be honest, I was just testing it. I don't think it's necessary, but it just is what it is. I was testing them, exporting them. So
Okay.
the grooms themselves, you can generate strands textures, right? And you just assign the proper hat. So like this one, and then you can generate them, and it'll actually, you can choose the resolution, and it generates a number of textures for you. But I was trying to see what use cases we can get out of those, and it doesn't seem like there's really that much, to be honest.
I see. So basically, the import process is import that a limbic file is gonna generate the groom. Unreal is gonna generate the groom file, and then those textures are generated as part of that import.
Yep. Well, not as part of the import. They are a manual action.
Oh, I see.
All right. Once the groom file is imported, which you see right here, you do have to right-click it and do create strands textures.
What you just did. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's really cool is now that we have these basically what's happening inside of the engine is they're treating these again almost in like clumps, but in groups, and so we can actually enable physics with them. And my window's really small here. It's one of these ones. There we go. Enable simulation. And it'll be quick, but as soon as I click this, you'll probably see these like bounce up and down for a quick second. Oh, maybe not. Oh, there we go. They moved a little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get weird stuff like this happening, which you can fix in a number of ways. But now that we have that, I should be able to. You can see how the fibers move.
Very cool.
That's amazing. Even though they're not individually rigged per se, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And of course, you only see one of the groups moving. The other group hasn't been set up yet, but yeah, so they're all there. And you can set all of these parameters, right? There's bend constraint, stretch constraint, collision constraint. There's
follow through of some sort, I imagine.
Yeah, and if you really want to make something like heavy and shaggy, for example, you can change the strand size to like 16.
Very cool.
Right.
That's awesome.
So all sorts of things you can do to fine tune that look to act how you want it to act.
That's those physics is what we used for the jacket, right?
Correct. Yes.
Something similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that had good weight to it and follow through.
Yeah.
It really looked really cozy. But this will be great for Preston's hat, especially with any of the performance that he has in the wee hour show in the pilot.
Yeah.
Bring him to life.
Yeah, and so really the only other thing was just setting up the materials for this, which took a good portion of a day to experiment with and try out and grab some references from some other people who have done things like this and just mess around to what's going to give us the best look that we can. The real important part to me was just getting this like color variation and this roughness variation happening in the strands to give this feeling of like there's a texture to the fibers, and it's not just, even though they are technically like one smooth fiber, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want that feeling to be there. So you can see there's a little bit of noise inside of the textures themselves.
Yeah.
Specifically like right at the root in the middle here. I can't bring in my mouse for that, but you can see how there's breakup in there. And so I really wanted that to be present to really go back to what's going on in here.
Yeah.
We're zoomed in and it's pixelated. You can see all this noise of variation happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it came out gorgeous. So, oh shit, I had a question. I don't remember now.
Well, it's such great attention to detail that you're putting into this, to respect sort of Julie's, handmade real life puppets, and be able to translate that somehow into 3D is really impressive. And you can see a lot of the different layers and techniques that you're using to
Yeah.
get all those different imperfections. Very cool.
What did you use to create the material? That was the question. Was it a substance painter?
No, this is all just done inside of Unreal.
Oh, I see.
Again,
So
that's like my specialties really rely on material and shader generation. So
right.
I have a lot of fun with that aspect of things, and you can
Yeah.
see it's pretty simple overall.
Uh-huh.
The way that it is. There's not much to this here. I did try a number of things, and it was just like
Uh-huh.
it's just not worth it because the difference wasn't really there. But there are a couple of the main things are just noise generators set to a specific scale, and you can see I'm using this lerp to break up the roughness, and I'm allowing us to have access to like how shiny can it be, and then how rough it can be as far as limits. So we can set those limits in the material itself and just make it fully modular for us.
Uh-huh. I see.
And so another thing that we have is, we have a parameter set to break up the color map too, which we do have a little bit of that going on. So it's basically transferring between this straight up noise map, which if I preview it, we can see what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and going between that and our color map, which is, did I start previewing it? I don't know what I just clicked there.
Right.
You can see there's not too much with this because this is plugged into the root UV attribute of the hair.
Yeah.
And that root UV attribute is that important part where we're matching with that code in Maya,
Color,
matching the UVs.
Yeah. So but the input here is the color from the mesh from the mesh color map. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You can see that down here.
Exactly. I see. Cool.
Right. And just a couple other small little things. So if I were to, I'm not going to save that. The easiest thing to really see is the noisiness. You see, as I up that, you can see how we're getting that color variation.
Cool.
Right, and sometimes it overrides, but just putting in a very subtle hint on that. If I put it at 0, we don't have any, but if I put it at like 0.015, it just gives this very, very subtle breakup. And again, we do have control over the roughness too. So if we really wanted to make things like, like shiny and wet, we still have that control. I'll get rid of.
I see. Nice. I mean, that material creation makes all the difference, man. Having, creating that blueprint and and the shader. It's instead of just using default materials or off the shelf.
Yeah, the power of shaders and materials, especially in modern game engines, is just all the difference in the world.
Wow.
But yeah, that's the general process for making these, and that's their output.
Yeah. Well, cool. I can wait to see this on a puppet. And we're still in the process of bringing in the generator into Unreal 5. It's gonna happen soon. And oh, by the way, actually, quick question: are we gonna be able to port this to Unreal 4, or are we using Unreal 5 specific features?
Nope, this is all available in Unreal 4 as well.
Cool.
Yeah, we reverted and tested that out at one point. a couple weeks ago when we were having some issues with that banding.
Oh, right,
that we
right,
were able
right.
to figure out.
Yeah. Well,
We
cool.
actually have this already running in some of our assets from Unreal 4. We've been running it for a little while with the clothing fibers and stuff. This is just more dense than that.
Yeah, it really just fills it well with those different layers, the clumping, all the parameters that you were able to dissect what makes Preston's hat look this way. You were
Yeah.
able to kind of go in there and tweak all those, and yeah, great job.
There's one thing that is, I call them happy little accidents, quoting Bob Ross, where you can see we do have some fibers that are actually not, I just said this properly, not quite the right color. Like we've got a couple of white fibers in here.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, like that just adds to the realism.
Oh, yeah. 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 Well, amazing work, Alex. This is, you know,
Thank you.
This is what, you know, also what we want to show the public, you know, how much work goes into creating the 3D puppets. You know, the level of quality that we're striving for. It's, you know, is unique to our collection, is unique to our brand name among, you know, all the other NFTs. So, yeah.
Love the head shake.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we are here, you know, 45 minutes in. We can, is there anything else? I think we covered pretty much it, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool.
If you have any questions, I can answer those, but otherwise, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you know, we can end it here, and you know, maybe if the public has questions, we can always forward them to you, and we can answer them on the YouTube channel or on our Discord server, on our, you know, on Twitter and all of that. So
yeah, we'll be getting into some more character design as we move forward into the pilot. So we do have a lot of unique characters that will be appearing. And so we'll be doing a lot of new hats and outfits and different patterns and grooming in the future. So stay tuned for more character design and development as we get into the pilot a little bit more.
Yeah, cool. For sure. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Alex.